Hello and welcome to another episode of Between the Covers, the show where we get up close and personal with authors and people from the writing and publishing industry to talk about what really goes on between the covers of creating a book. So if you're watching for the first time, please do say hello. We'll say hello anyway, whether you are or whether you're not. But if you're watching for the first time, my name is Daniela Beckner. I'm an author, book journey mentor, founder of a company called Conscious Dreams Publishing. We work with authors from all over the world to help them to get their powerful messages and stories out there in the form of books. Up behind me here are just some of the 200 plus books that we've published over the last 6 years. I'm absolutely passionate about working with authors, helping to get their powerful messages and stories out there so they can educate, inspire, empower, and entertain for generations to come. So today, I'm going to turn my theme tune music off. There you go. So if you find this broadcast of worth and of value, please do share this out, invite your followers, tap the screen, show us some love, subscribe so you can tune in to other interviews with other authors. But today I have an extra special guest. His name is Leigh Brandon. He is a functional medicine practitioner. He has a podcast called, I just love the name of it, Radical Health Rebel, where he discusses all things health and wellness and with a focus on skin. So he has released a book which has come out today called Eliminating Adult Acne for Good. Leigh also suffered from severe cystic acne for 18 years and is a wealth of knowledge. This book contains so much information about how you can eliminate your acne for good. But let's welcome Leigh, and he is going to tell you all about it. If you have any questions, this is always an interactive show. Please do throw those questions up. I will go over to the comments. Please do throw those questions up and Leigh will answer them. So let me bring him in. Hello, Leigh. How are you today?
Hi, Danny. Yeah, I'm very good and really glad to be here.
Excellent. So you are, I mean, this is not your first rodeo. This is not your first book. I know you've published quite a few already, but tell us, how does it feel to have finally published your book, Eliminating Adult Acne for Good?
Oh, sorry, I lost you for a moment then.
Oh, I was saying, how does it feel to, I know you've published books before, you've had quite a few out, so it's not your first rodeo, but how does it feel to have your book out today and available?
Yeah, it's really great. I mean, it's the first book that I've, self-published. So it's normally I just hand over the manuscript to someone else, and apart from a bit of the editing, that's normally my job. So it is a new experience really to, with your help, to actually publish the book myself. But yeah, it's great. It's great that it's out there now, and hopefully it's going to help a lot of people.
Amazing. So for those who don't know, you just tell us a little bit about you first of all, and what motivated you to write this book.
Yeah, so as you said in the introduction, I did suffer from quite severe acne for 18 years, so from the age of 13 to 31, pretty much. And, it wasn't the most pleasant journey, I would say. And, visiting my GP, my doctor, was only ever met with, well, here's a cream, here's a cleanser, here's some antibiotics. And then, when they didn't work, you go back and obviously my teenage years, my mum would be taking me and she'd say, oh, is it something I'm feeding him? Is it something in his diet? And the doctor would say, no, acne's got absolutely nothing to do with diet. And my skin was just getting worse and worse and worse. And, the only solution my doctor had for me was, well, let's try a different antibiotic. And that went on for 18 years. And, even then I kind of thought, well, surely this can't be doing me any good, because even then I knew you should only take antibiotics for a maximum of 6 months. And even then, that's probably quite a long time when you think of what it does to the really important bacteria in your gut, which is crucial for your health and your immune system. So, there were times it was so bad, I just didn't even, want to leave the house kind of thing. So when I got to the age of, I was around 30, I guess, 30, 31, I was fortunate enough, I'd started working in health and fitness, and I was at a lecture in Loughborough, and there was this guy that I'd been a fan of for quite a while, and he started talking about food intolerances, and he started talking about hormone imbalances and how they can cause skin problems, particularly acne. You know, my eyes kind of lit up and I thought, hang on a minute, this guy's talking about things that my doctor's never mentioned before. Maybe this guy's onto something. So that was really the start of my journey. And then I went away and I got some tests done and found out I had all these food intolerances and there were certain foods I shouldn't be eating. And I had a fungal infection and I needed to eliminate certain foods that we know that feeds fungus in the body. And it didn't take very long for my skin to massively improve. It wasn't 100% kind of cured, if you like. That probably took about another 10 years, but I would say it was 90% better within the space of a few weeks. So the fact that I was working in, you know, health and wellness already at the time, I thought, well, why don't I start helping other people? Because I know there was a lot of people that were also suffering from the same problem. I mean, you know, the percentage of the population that suffer with acne, you know, it's very high, obviously, in teenage years. And you know, I talk about it in the book. You know, if you go to hunter-gatherers, their teenagers don't get acne. It's only people that eat a Western diet that actually get acne, which is interesting when, you know, the medical community will still tell you there's no link between acne and diet. And, you know, in the book, I've got, you know, a few hundred references that suggest that the medical community have got it wrong.
Well, can I just say there, when Leigh says a few hundred references, hey, Janessa, he is not joking. And this book is all backed up with citations, with references, with, you've done your research, you've done your, it's packed full of information here. Just very quickly, we've got Francesca who's saying hello, fellow Czech practitioner.
Oh, hi, Francesca.
Hey, Warren saying hello, respect.
Hey, was I?
He's asking, was that Bruce Lee? So is that the what's that in relation to? Is that a joke?
Well, he might have been talking about the guy doing the lecture at Loughborough University, but Warren knows full well who that was doing the lecture at Loughborough University.
Okay, that joke's gone over my head there.
Yeah, we've got the same teacher, so Warren knows who that was.
Oh, I see. Okay, no worries. So we're talking about this, you know, going on this cycle of going to doctors and them giving you creams or giving you antibiotics for 18 years on a hamster wheel almost, and it finally took you to hear something different for your eyes to light up and go in a different direction. How many people do you speak with who have the same experience where they're literally going to the doctors and being given the same, you know, the different antibiotic or, you know, the same sort of cream for years without ever healing?
Yes. So I actually go onto a lot of Facebook groups. Actually, there's a lot of acne Facebook groups. And the reason I go on there is to try and give people a different paradigm to the solution, because most of the people that go onto these groups, they will say things like, should I take this drug? Should I take that drug? Should I use this product on my skin? And it breaks my heart, because that way of thinking is never going to get the cure, because all that's doing is masking the symptoms. And even if it works, and quite often they don't work. And you know, what's quite interesting as well, you know, as you said, I've done a lot of research into the science, and nearly all these products, the testing is done either a 6-week trial or a 12-week trial. And even if the product looks good after 6 weeks, doesn't mean it's going to be good after 6 months, right? So, you know, I see a lot of women given the contraceptive pill, and there's lots of problems with the contraceptive pill. As an example, there's another drug, whilst it's probably the most effective medical treatment. So it used to be called Accutane. It's now called isotretinoin. And the reason they changed the name is because it was getting such a bad reputation for the side effects.
Wow. So they just changed the name instead.
They changed the name so that people didn't realize it was the same. So the main kind of serious side effect of isotretinoin is suicide, right? So, you know, I would say to anyone, is that really, you know, is that worth even trying it, right? You could end up committing suicide to get over your acne.
depression, or is it due to the fact that it doesn't work? And what?
No, it's the actual drug. It's the actual drug causes suicidal thoughts.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, you know, there's other drugs, you know, known to cause many cancers. You know, there's problems with the liver, with kidneys. Again, it's all in the book, but a lot of these products, they don't work. I mean, sometimes they might work temporarily, but ultimately in the long term, they don't work. They've got serious side effects. So, for instance, isotretinoin, one of the things it does, it stops the sebaceous gland secreting sebum in the skin. Well, it does that permanently. So you could get rid of your acne, but now you've got dry and quite often red skin instead.
Right.
And that's permanent. You can't get rid of it. So, you know, with something like acne, you can get rid of it if you know how to do it. Right. And it can be done permanently. So, you know, my skin's been good for the last 20 years. So it's really frustrating when I see people, it's the mindset, it's the paradigm. It's, oh, what product can I use, or what can I put on my skin? When actually, you know, the phrase that I use is the inside job. It's something that's going on the inside of the body, causing it. It just causes the symptoms to be on the skin. It's not necessarily a skin issue. So whilst there are some things you can do to your skin to help prevent acne, for me, it's the least important thing. There's so many steps before you even get to, you know, what to do with your skin. I mean, in the book, I do talk about certain things that are good for the skin. So, you know, again, looking at the science, we know that, you know, there's a certain pH of your skin that's ideal. And if the pH goes too high or too alkaline, that creates the environment where you're more likely to get acne. And quite interestingly, a lot of the products that people use to clean their skin with increases the pH of their skin, which increases the chances of getting acne. So a lot of people think that acne is an issue with dirt on the skin. It's not dirt on the skin. But what a lot of people do is they then overwash their skin, and it actually makes it worse. So, I mean, I don't mind giving one little tip away.
Go ahead.
Is that if you're going to shower and wash your face or anywhere you've got acne, don't use any soap at all. Just a good water is actually, you'll be surprised how clean you can actually get. I mean, I can't remember the last time I put any kind of soap or anything on my face, you know, and it cleans. It cleans just as good. I mean, there are certain parts of the body where you do want to, you know, use a bit of soap or whatever it might be. Not on the areas where you're going to get acne.
Yeah.
Right. So,
I mean, what I found fascinating, there's so many things fascinating about it, but one of the things I found fascinating is what you just said, that a lot of the things that are prescribed actually not only don't stop or prevent acne from appearing, but actually exacerbate the problem or create new problems. Yeah. And I think that's a fundamental issue. And I'm sure you talk about this on your podcast a lot with, you know, Western medicine is about selling the medicine, not always looking at the root cause. And you go into a lot of information, a lot of depth in the book about some of the root causes, including the science and the biology. I'm just going to read out some comments, and I do have a question. We've got Rowan here saying Leigh is a great teacher and master of his craft, despite bad jokes. Having worked with him for 20 years, I would highly recommend his book to anyone looking to heal. Definitely. I mean, what would you say makes this book different? I know you did a lot of research about other books to do with acne. What would you say makes this book different?
So the approach that I use, that I would say makes it different, is it's very individualized. Now, listen, there are some other good books out there on acne. There are some other good books. What the way that my book is different, it treats everyone as an individual. And so, for instance, the second part of the things that you need to do. So the first thing that I look at, actually, this is something that's not in any other acne book that I'm aware of, is that the first thing I get people to do is to work on their mindset. Right. So as I've mentioned, the paradigm that most people have is that acne is something that you need to get a product and put it on your skin, and that's going to solve all your problems. That kind of thinking isn't going to get you there. So the first task, if you like, is to get your mind in the right place, because to cure your acne, you're going to have to go on a journey, and it's a journey of lifestyle change. And to be able to do that, you've got to be really positive in your mind, because making change is difficult, right? Everyone finds change quite a scary thing to do. And there will be times when, it's not a smooth road, right? There are always bumps in the road in life. Whatever project you're working on, there are always bumps in the road. So when you get that bump in the road, you've got to have that mindset. Okay, I'm just going to dust myself down and just keep going. So there's a whole chapter just on mindset to get people really in the right frame of mind, even before they even start on the program. But then the first kind of doing part, if you like, is really looking at diet. It is the most important thing, despite the fact that the medical community still say that diet's got absolutely nothing to do with acne. The research suggests that's wrong. And, my years and years of, about 15 years now, I've been helping people with acne, that sometimes all someone needs to do is to change their diet. That's happened multiple times. That certainly kind of happened with me. That's happened with clients that are just getting to start eating right for their individual needs and eating better foods. And there are specific foods that are far more likely to cause acne. So if we can eliminate those from the diet, bring in other foods that are going to be better, then that's the most important thing. But again, where the difference between what I've got in my book and many of the other books is that I don't say this is the acne diet, off you go. Right? It's okay. We need to go on a journey to find out what's right for you, because each of us are different.
Yeah.
Right? Just look at us two, Daniela. We're different.
Yeah.
Right. Luckily for you, we're different.
Warren, I see what you mean now about
So what would make you think that we would actually thrive on the same diet? We're very different.
Yeah.
Right. We've got different backgrounds, and genetically we're different. We've got different requirements. Our ancestors come from different parts of the world. I've got mainly Northwestern European. I've got a little bit of sort of Indian, Asian. I'm sure you've got some European and some African. We've got different genetics, right? So what would make you think that we would thrive on the same diet? We wouldn't. Just like if we both took the same drug, we wouldn't necessarily get the same response, or we wouldn't necessarily get the same side effects. We get different side effects.
Yeah.
So I'd say the one thing that makes my book really different, well, two things. One is I have a whole chapter on mindset. So getting your mind right before you even start the program. But the second thing is it's the individuality of it. It's doing something that's absolutely right for you. It's not a one size fits all approach, because they don't work.
And that's what I thought was great about your book. Exactly as you said, everyone's got different requirements. Everyone has a different diet that they're best suited to, and it takes that into account. But what I really like is the boldness of it. So even from page 1, and when we got this manuscript through, read the first few chapters, and the good, the bad, the ugly, straight away it starts with a quote here from, I think it must be from Overview Acne. There is no evidence that the diet plays a role in acne. And then the whole chapter, in fact the whole book, just smashes these myths, but with so much evidence, so much research, and so much citation to the detail that you just can't argue with it. I mean, obviously people need to buy the book, but I mean, what would you say would be the top foods to avoid if you, in terms of getting acne?
Yeah, I mean, just generally speaking, it's generally foods that create a very sharp increase in blood sugar. So what we call high glycemic foods. So anything, sugary, flour, anything made from flour, even some fruits, some vegetables as well can really spike blood sugar very quickly. Because again, I talk about it in the book, but what that does is it stimulates specific hormones. Now, a lot of people will have heard of hormonal acne, right? And that's one reason why women are often prescribed the contraceptive pill. But what a lot of people don't realize is that when you eat certain foods, the ones I've just mentioned, they stimulate specific hormones, in particular insulin, and another one called insulin like growth factor 1. And what they do is they stimulate something called the mTOR pathway, which stands for mammalian target of rapamycin. And what that does is it increases the production of sebum from the sebaceous glands in the skin. So that's the sticky stuff in the skin, oil that moisturizes the skin. So it increases the rate of production of sebum. It also increases the rate of production of skin cells. So what you have in the hair follicle, you've got more skin cells, you've got this sticky sebum, it all sticks together. And that's what causes the blockage of the pore. And that's when you then get a whitehead, a blackhead, and then the bacteria. So the bacteria that live on your skin, they basically live off of the protein in the skin cells and the fats in the sebum. That's because there's no other food supply. It's not like the bacteria in our gut. So if you've got a blocked pore, these bacteria have now got all this stuff to feast on. So they proliferate, then your immune system responds to that, and that creates the inflammation and the redness.
Right.
So for a lot of people, literally just cutting out those high glycemic foods, those sugary foods, the one's going to create that insulin response. That, for some people, that's all they need to do to get rid of their acne. But this is the other thing. Everyone's cause is different. And that's why there are 7 chapters going through all the different things that some people might need to do to overcome their acne, from the most important, so food, all the way down to the least important, actually, what do you do to your skin?
It's unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, I guess it's not unbelievable, but you know, you go to the doctors and there isn't even a conversation from what I've gathered about diet or, you know, the person's lifestyle even. And I think this is what's so fundamental, especially I know you do all this with Paul Check, looking at the holistic, looking at the person as a whole, the holistic underlying causes of what could happen, looking at the person's lifestyle and the habits and everything else, and diet, which is so key. I had a question and it's completely gone. It's completely gone from my mind. I don't know what I was going to say now. Oh yeah, that was it. So how do you work with people? So if I was to come to you and I had acne, well, 2 questions before I go to that one. One was that there's a lot of sort of science in your book, and you know, there's diagrams, there's information, there's research. What would you say to the average sort of acne sufferer who is maybe suffering from self-esteem, and they've tried all the creams, they've tried everything, they want to pick up your book, but they don't necessarily want to engage with the body, the scientific part of it? I mean, how important is it for them to understand what's happening in their body?
Well, that's a good question. They don't need to understand it. If they're not interested in that stuff, it doesn't. You don't need to. There's a whole chapter in there. So right at the beginning of the book, there's a section where I say, this is how you can use the book. There's 2 different ways in which you can use the book. One way, if you're not really interested in the why, just go straight to chapter 3 and get started. If you're someone that needs to know, because I do get clients, they're like, I'm not going to do anything unless I understand why I'm doing it.
I'm that client.
Yeah. So,
I like the science. I need to know. I need to understand.
So that would be someone, then if you read chapters 1 and 2, then you'll understand the why. But, you know, I mean, I had a guy contacted me today, and, you know, he kind of said to me, look, you know, if you're going to ask me to do stuff, I'm going to need to understand why, which is fine. Right. But again, I understand people are different. Some people are like, no, just tell me what I've got to do, and I'll get stuck in. So the book is written in that way that it will actually serve both types of people.
Okay, amazing. If you're not interested in the science, straight to chapter 3. And I love that you can read it on so many different levels. Like, I'm that person who I want to understand the science, and yeah, I get that. I'd read the whole. Well, obviously, I have read the whole thing, and it's great. So tell me, how do people then work with you?
Yeah, so there's 2 different ways in which I actually work with people. So one would be one-to-one. So people have an initial consultation just to make sure that I'm right for them and they're right for me. You know, sometimes that, you know, I'm just not the right person. Then I might suggest they just go and buy my book instead. Or I do also have an online.
Oh, you put yourself on mute. Just there you go.
There we go. Back in the room.
What's the podcast? Well, it's an online community. I heard.
What's that?
We got up to you have an online community.
Yeah. So I have an online coaching program where people can basically go through the same steps that are in the book, but they've got someone to hold their hand whilst they're doing it. Because, you know, as I alluded to earlier, change can be quite scary for people. It can be quite difficult, or, you know, you might have a lot of questions. You might live in a certain country, and I might have suggested you need to go and get something, and you might be, oh, we can't get that in our country. So what's the alternative? So when I work with people one-to-one, I generally get them to commit to at least 6 months of coaching, because that, you know, it takes time. There's a lot, you know, and if you look at the book, there's a lot of things that people need to do quite often.
Yeah.
And
you don't get the results overnight, do you?
No, absolutely. I mean, some people do get them quite quickly, but again, that's, you know, that's the people that it was purely down to diet, and then you get the diet right, and the acne goes away, and that does happen. I'd probably say maybe 10 to 20% of the time. But there's so many other factors, whether it's like toxicity in the body, heavy metals, balancing the gut microbiome, making sure people aren't constantly stressed all the time. You know, there's so many other things, products that they're using generally on their skin, products they're using around the house, toxins they might have in their work environment. So there's potentially lots of things to work through. So if people are working with me one-to-one, then they have a half an hour coaching session with me each week. They check in and they basically feed back to me how they've gotten on from last week. So each week they get set tasks to do. And then the following week, we say, right, okay, how did you get on with those tasks? And say, well, I did X and Y, but I didn't do A and B. And then we say, right, okay, let's come up with a solution on how you can get A and B done. And then that just goes through the process. With the online coaching, there's weekly coaching, and there's normally 1 or 2 time slots, and then they're hour time slots where anyone in the group can actually call in and ask questions, or, you know, if they've got any challenges, they can talk through with myself or one of the other coaches to come up with a solution to overcome the challenge that they're having.
That sounds amazing. And your website here is... Oh, I was waiting for you to read it out.
No.
So if you want to work with Leigh, so is it www.bodycheck.co.uk?
It is, yeah, and the check is CHEK.
Yeah. Okay.
Just in case people are thinking that's a spelling mistake, it's actually correct.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, I mean, now we're on the topic of check, because I've mentioned obviously pull check, and some of you know your pull check trained. So is my sister and Warren. For those who don't know, who aren't in the health and wellness field, who is pull check, and what does it mean to be trained? Pull check trained.
Wow, how long have you got to talk about? Well, he's a Californian who was born in 1961. I mean, to cut a very long story short, to me, the man's a living genius. How he's learned so much in one lifetime, I can never work out. I'm sure Warren would agree with me. I'm sure Francesca would agree with me as well. He is like an expert in so many different subjects. It's almost hard to believe. You know, I first came across his work back in the 90s when he was almost like a strongman. And he was very much into, you know, his health and fitness and lifting weights and all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't until about 10 years later that, you know, he started really demonstrating how much he knew about nutrition. And then next thing, he starts talking about spirituality. And then shortly after starts talking about things like plant medicine. And you just think, how does this guy know all this stuff, you know? So, you know, my journey really started in the mid-90s. I used to read his articles in a magazine. And then I started formally taking his training in 2001. And I finished it in 2007. So it's about 5.5 years of training. And it was almost like the way that I described the first course I ever did, which was 9 days long. It was like someone turned me upside down by my ankles, pulled my trousers down, and was spanking my backside. And it took me about a year for my brain to kind of work out what I'd been taught in those 9 days. But it was just so life-changing. And what it's enabled me to do, in the years since my first, even from the first course I did, I started helping people with problems that many doctors didn't know how to help people with. And it's just enabled me to help so many people that just didn't have a hope before then. They'd run out of options. They'd been to see all the specialists, often spent an absolute fortune. Even in the UK, where we've got supposedly free medical service, they were going private because the NHS wasn't helping them. They were still spending loads of money and not getting any result. So, it's very rewarding when you can use the training that you've used to really, really help people.
That's amazing. That Paul Check has wrote the foreword in your book. Same with my sister, her book Self-Care for Life in the City. So I've got to learn quite a bit about Paul Check. Absolutely phenomenal, the information there. And Warren is agreeing. He says Paul Check ahead of his time.
Yeah, a couple of decades ahead at least.
Wow. So before, I know we can go on a little bit longer, can't we? Another 5-10 minutes. So if anyone has any questions for Leigh, please do throw those questions up. He is the author of Eliminating Adult Acne for Good. And I think you have about 4 or 5 or perhaps 7 other books as well. And a podcast called Radical Health Rebel. Tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah, so I started that in the summer of 2022. It was something that I'd been planning to do for about 5 years, but life got in the way, kind of thing. But then strangely, what we went through in 2020 and 2021 gave me a bit of extra time to actually sit down and get it off the ground. But it's certainly been something that I've massively enjoyed doing. And I like to get some really good guests on the show that have been through the journey themselves, whatever health journey they've been through. So a lot of my guests come on and they've had their own health journey, but that's then inspired them to maybe train in a specific thing, perhaps that helped them get better. And then they then turn their life around and then they start helping others to do the same.
Like you.
Exactly like me. I mean, it was interesting. When I was trying to come up with a name for the podcast, the other name I had in mind that I almost went with was the Hero's Journey podcast, because what I just explained is what we call the Hero's Journey.
Yeah.
Right? So someone has a challenge, they find a teacher or a master, they learn from that person, they go through the journey, they turn their life around, and then they start helping others to do the same. So I do really enjoy hearing people's stories on the podcast. But I also really enjoy kind of just having a dialogue with them about the things that they've done and the things that they've learned and how they've helped people. It started off talking about anything to do with health. That was my kind of initial thought for the podcast. But then as I've done more and more episodes, I've started to realize I just want to talk about the things that are the most passionate to me. So skin health, gut health, and persistent pain. So they're the kind of the predominant type of clients that I tend to work with. So I actually work with people with eczema quite a bit as well, not just acne. Okay. So that might be my next book.
Yeah.
I work with a lot of people with gut conditions. So IBS, constipation, diarrhea, bloating, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, etc. And then people in pain, so back pain, shoulder pain, knee pain, people that have had pain for a period of time, not just I fell off my bike and hurt my knee. Go. That's where the medical community is good. But people that have had pain for a long period of time, or it could be sports injuries. So they're the kind of things I tend to discuss on the show.
Okay, fantastic. And if that sounds like you and you've just tuned in, or if you're watching on the replay, here is how you can connect with Leigh. There you go. www.bodycheck with K, no CK.co.uk. Okay, so tell us, what are your plans for your book, Eliminating Acne, Adult Acne for Good? We haven't even talked about the process of creating the book yet. That'll be another podcast.
Yeah. Well, for me, all I want. So the reason I wrote the book, that's probably the most important thing, is I would often get people contact me to coach them, and I would go through this long consultation, and I'd get to the end and I'd say, right, here are your options. So you can work with me one-to-one, or maybe do a coaching program. And they say, I can't afford it. And you're like, because they know that's what they need. I know that's what they need. But then, I have a lot of people that have contacted me over the years, and, they've got a job, they're on minimum wage. Right. So it's like, well, how can I help these people? So that's the reason I wrote the book, because, for £19.99, most people could afford that. Right. So that's why I wrote the book. So what I'm really hoping is that it's gonna get out there and help a lot of people that perhaps can't afford to work with someone like myself. As one of my clients once famously said, Leigh's not the cheapest ticket in town. So I just want the book to help as many people as possible. That's why I wrote the book.
Amazing. And I spoke about that in my newsletter yesterday, actually, the importance of sharing your story and expertise, because like you said, it's, if you want to cater for a wide range of people, you're not going to be able to physically be able to work with everybody, and they're not going to be able to always work with you for some of the reasons you've given. And having a book and be able to share your expertise is such a great way to have your knowledge all in one place and have it, people to be able to access that knowledge globally. I think it's fantastic. It's a great book as well. And can we just show the inside? Let's just give a shout out for our typesetter, Amit. The amount of diagrams. There you go. It's beautiful inside as well.
Yeah, it does look good.
Where can people get hold of the book, and how can they get hold of you apart from your website?
Okay. Well, actually, I was going to say, if they go to bodycheck.co.uk/books, they'll actually see all my books that I've written on there. One of them is for free. So I wrote that in the first lockdown. It was called The Coronavirus Survival Guide. So that's a free book. Be quite an interesting read to read now, because it's obviously nearly 3 years down the line, or nearly 4 years down the line, actually.
It's like it never happened.
Yeah. People can contact me on Instagram. So my handle on Instagram is Radical Health Rebel.
I love that title.
The book is also available on Amazon, paperback, and on Kindle. And they can also get the book from yourself.
Correct. Yeah, from the Conscious Dreams bookstore. So whether you're watching on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook, it's all in the link above or below. And it's all at all good retailers as well, such as Waterstones, Blackwell's, worldwide. So just check it out. Eliminating Adult Acne for Good. Make sure you hop over to www.bodycheck.co.uk to check out Leigh and his services as well. And you can connect with him via Instagram at his handle, Radical Health Rebel. Leigh, before we close, what's next for you? What are your plans? I know you've got something exciting happening tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm on a podcast tomorrow, the Chris Voss show tomorrow. I guess the one thing I am looking to do, I have done a few recently, is to get on many more podcasts to talk about the book. I'm also currently studying something called the Emotion Code, which I'm hoping to finish probably in January. And then after that, I've had such a busy year. I want to take a few months where I'm doing very little, because I've packed so much into 2023. I definitely needed a little bit of time where I'm not working on any projects, just focusing on, working with my clients.
Yeah.
And as soon as spring around, back on the tennis court and having fun.
Sounds good. I like that. I think people often forget that sometimes resting is essential and doing something,
Yeah, well, I'm guilty of not doing that enough.
Yeah, me too.
So I'm very aware that, I was kind of thinking, what's next? And the company I'm studying with, they offered me the level 2 and the level 3 at a really discounted rate, but it would start as soon as I finished the next one. And I said, thanks, but no thanks, because I'm taking some time out. And obviously I did think about, could I write a book on eczema? And I thought, no, let's just give it some time. Let's just not take on any projects for a little while.
Yeah.
So I don't plan on taking on any new projects till at least the spring of next year.
That sounds like a good plan. Well, you've got a book to promote, Leigh, and so you're going to be on lots of podcasts and hopefully speaking, and and getting this out there worldwide for the world to read and re-educate themselves. So, Leigh, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. Do you have any final words that you'd like to leave your audience with?
I think 2 things. I think, first of all, I have read a lot of acne books, and I know I'm completely biased, but this is the best one I've ever read. So if you've got acne and you want to know how to get rid of it, I'd definitely get the book. The second thing I would say about the book is that chapters 3 to 9 will help anyone improve their health. So you don't need acne to benefit from the book. So one of the things I often say to clients is health and disease cannot live in the same body. So the chapters in the book teach you how to get healthy, because if you're healthy, you can't have acne, because acne is there because your bodily systems are imbalanced. Well, if you balance them, you become healthy, you can't have a disease, and acne is a disease. So you don't even need acne to benefit from the book. Anyone can benefit from the book.
Well, I definitely benefited from it. So thank you so much. And I think that is a tweet moment there. You need to patent that quote. Health cannot live in the same body as disease. That's what you said, isn't it?
Yeah, health and disease can't live in the same body. Yeah.
That's the one. Even better. Health and disease can't live in the same body at the same time. Leigh, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. Join us next week, 7 p.m. GMT, 2 p.m. EST, where I will be interviewing the awesome and amazing author, Adino Israel, who's written a children's book called Adam and Eve. Check out the beautiful illustrations by Jason Lee. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. See you next week. Bye-bye.